This is the news in detail on the hour from the WOR newsroom. B-52s came very close to Saigon tonight, dropping bombs on suspected communist troop positions 23 miles from the South Vietnamese capital. The raid was against an infiltration route from Cambodia that is traditionally used by the communists to man a forward base. Meanwhile, more heavy fighting continued around An Loc, the South Vietnamese provincial capital northwest of Saigon. At least 250 South Vietnamese troops have been evacuated from that area in the past 2 days. In North Vietnam, the most concentrated American bombing in 4 years is still going on. B-52s hit war supply depots on both sides of the coastal city of Dong Hoi, a major transshipment point in North Vietnam. Presidential aide Dr. Henry-Kissiner arrived in Tokyo today on what is being called a reconciliation mission to patch up strained United States-Japanese relations. 900 guards were at the Tokyo International Airport to make sure that nothing went wrong, and a special team of 25 police will be with Dr. Kissinger wherever he goes. Left-wing groups are protesting Kissinger's visit because they regard him as the mastermind of American war policy in Vietnam, and they have charged that he is in Tokyo to get greater Japanese cooperation for the American invasion of Vietnam, as they call it. Kissinger will take part in lengthy talks during his 3-day stay, and among other things, he will try to convince his hosts that Japan has nothing to lose from our association with Communist China. An automatic rifle in the hands of a Bronx man almost became the instrument of tragedy this evening, as police reported that 15 shots were fired at them before the sniper finally gave himself up. 30-year-old James Friel was arrested after a 2.5-hour confrontation with police near his apartment at 2909 Gleason Avenue in the South Bronx. Police said that Friel finally told them that he was distraught over family problems involving his wife and 2 children. The suspect allegedly used a .22 caliber rifle to fire the shots from his apartment window. No one was reported hit by the shots. Fire on the contract and injury reports go up among members of the Uniform Fire Officers Association here in New York City. Fire Commissioner Robert Lowry, alerted by the increased injury claims, today warned the department and the public of serious consequences because he said that some firemen are now involved in a job action. Doctors are checking fire department personnel at hospitals and fire scenes to determine the number of legitimate injuries. Absenteeism is going up only among the fire officers as they press for a set pay ratio between themselves and firemen in their contract with the city. So far, the city has been unwilling to include pay parity language in the contract with the UFOA. There were some definite injuries to firefighters today in blazes in Brooklyn and Lower Manhattan. 11 men required treatment for heat exhaustion and smoke inhalation after fighting a fire at South 10th and Berry Streets in Brooklyn. 27 firemen were felled by the smoke and heat while working on a blaze in an apartment house on 12th Avenue in Manhattan. We'll have more news after this. Right now, General Tire is having a pre-4th of July sale on the famous General Jet Whitewall tire. Right now, you can buy the long-mileage General Jet Whitewall tire for only $14.95. That's for the popular size 650/13 plus $175 federal excise tax per tire. The General Jet Whitewall tire has 4 strong plies of impact-resisting nylon cord and General Tire's famous dual-tread design for traction and stability.
New generation of Generals. There's a tough new generation of Generals.
Don't miss this fabulous Whitewall tire sale. The offer ends Saturday, July 1st, and that's at General Tire, where the big red G has stood for quality for over 56 years. I've heard Jordan's General Tire of New Jersey. See Frank McDonald, Route 17 in Union, East Rutherford. George Storr, 5207 Kennedy Boulevard, North Bergen. Bob Stone, Route 17 at Lord and Taylor. WR AM radio news time in 15 seconds, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. According to Maine Democratic Senator Edmund Muskie, Senator George McGovern can make it to the nomination peak on his own. Today, Senator Muskie declined to turn over his committed delegates and endorse the McGovern candidacy. Speaking before the National Press Club in Washington, Muskie said,
"It now appears likely that by the time the delegate selection process is completed in late June, 1,200 to 1,300 delegates pledged to Senator McGovern will have been elected in primaries and conventions. It is only realistic to recognize that his nomination is probable."
Here in New York City today, Senator McGovern, who began his campaigning for the June 20th primary, said that he understood Muskie's decision not to endorse him. The South Dakota senator said he was absolutely certain that he could unify the Democratic Party if he were elected president, despite the opposition by Southerners to some of his policies. Over on the Republican side today, Vice President Spiro Agnew talked in Los Angeles of Democratic tax reform proposals.
I sometimes think of these tax schemes as leap year lollipops. Very appetizing to the eye, but not much substance. And they can give you a nasty headache if you're not careful. In 1972, we're seeing more leap year lollipops than ever before in memory. And the reason, I suppose, is that there have been more candidates for the presidency than usual. And most of them come out in favor of soaking the rich and sharing the wealth. Well, I understand their plight. After all, if you have your heart set on becoming president of the United States, you have to have an issue.
New laws for New York State. Governor Rockefeller today approved such measures as a one-year extension of higher commuter and resident income taxes for New York City. The income tax hikes were originally passed by the state legislature and the city council last year to help balance the 1971-72 city budget. Now the extension will help balance the next budget. And there'll now be runoff primary elections for 3 major city offices. The new measure requires runoff battles for nominations for mayor, controller, and city council president if no candidate gets 40% of the vote in the regular primary. The governor's approval of the runoff bill is aimed at preventing a repeat of the 1969 Democratic race for the mayoralty nomination, as the liberal vote was split among a number of candidates. An estimated $120,000 worth of stolen oil paintings, jewelry, and men's clothing was recovered tonight as Manhattan detectives arrested 2 men. Police seized Charles Markovich and Joseph Giuliano, who lived in apartments at 151 2nd Avenue. The stolen goods were reported found in the apartments. Also discovered were such devices as acetylene torches, lock picks, electrical equipment for bypassing burglar alarms, and even a collapsible wire ladder that could be folded into a man's coat pocket. Police said that Markovich and Giuliano were members of a highly professional burglary ring, and the investigation is continuing in order to find other members. Payday today for 2 gunmen at a Midtown construction site. Police said the 2 men wore coveralls and bulletproof vests as they entered a shack on the site of the new New York Telephone Company building at 42nd Street and 6th Avenue. Inside, they disarmed a guard, escaped with a $20,000 payroll. The money had been stacked in a shoebox for payment to the construction workers. There were no reported injuries. 10 years' worth of prison time were given today to 59-year-old Filipino diplomatic attaché and a 61-year-old merchant from Thailand. Cho Siu Chen and Domingo Cañeso were both convicted of smuggling 34 pounds of heroin into the United States last November. Cañeso was able to bring his luggage with the drugs into this country without a customs search because of his diplomatic status. Both men were later arrested here in Manhattan.